Shalom! On this occasion, we from Group 8 will explain about nuclear science and technology. First, I will explain what is IPTEC. According to Manuel Castle, science and technology is a collection of tools, rules, and procedures, which is the application of scientific knowledge to certain jobs in conditions that allow repetition. Science and technology includes new discoveries related to the technology or art developments in the field of technology itself. In addition, according to Ursula Franklin, technology as a practical way to describe how we all as humans make things somewhere here. It can be concluded that science and technology is a science that studies technological developments based on science. Science and technology go hand in hand with the times. Science and technology is an abbreviation of science and technology. Contains source of information that can increase one's knowledge and insight in the field of technology. With the existence of science and technology that is continuously developed, it makes human life easier. Science and technology can facilitate communication, can make existing resources managed optimally and with quality. Besides that, it can help improve and utilize new energy sources that are useful for sustainability. Human life, in addition, it can also be seen from the education sector, which make it easier for us to take part in online learning or WFH, work from home. Next, I will explain Science and Technology Institute. There are various science and technology institutions in Indonesia, including the Agency for the Assessment and Application of Technology (BPPT), which is a non-ministerial institution whose role is to collaborate with commercial users and end users to become partner and consistently develop superior products and innovative. In addition, there is also the Indonesian Nuclear Energy Agency (BATAN), which is an institution that has the task of conducting research, development, and application of nuclear energy. There is also the Indonesian Institute of Sciences (LIPI), whose duties are to carry out research activities in the fields of earth sciences, life sciences, engineering sciences, social sciences, and humanity, and then scientific service. The National Standardization Body (BSN) takes part in carrying out governmental tasks in the field of standardization and conformity assessment in Indonesia. There is also a research center for science and technology, Puspitek, which is an integrated area for placing a number of research centers under the auspice of the LIPI, Batan, BPPT, KLHK institutions. Next, I will explain about science and technology budget. In developing science and technology, there must be a budget that supports science and technology in Indonesia. Head of the Research and Innovation Agency, BRIN, Laksana Trihandoko reports the 2023 budget ceiling for BRIN. Based on data obtained from dpr.go.id, so far the budget ceiling has reached 6.3 trillion and 2.24 trillion has been provided for the Science and Technology Research and Innovation Program and 4.14 trillion for the Management Support Program. For the public service function, BRAIN will provide funds 2.213 trillion, and the remaining 32.8 billion will be allocated for the science and technology research and innovation program for the education function. All efforts and participation made by the government have a noble goal, namely being able to help the community in the fields of science and technology, and of course want to develop it continuously. Next, I will explain about benefits of science and technology in everyday life. According to the projection of the World Energy Agency, until 2030 world agency demand will increase by 45%, or an average increase of 1.6% every year. Most are about 800% of the world energy needs are supplied from fossil fuels. The increase in world energy demand is mainly driven by the rate of population growth and GDP. Based on data from Indonesia's energy flow balance published by the Central Statistic Agency (BPS), it can be seen that net domestic energy use in Indonesia is 9,163. If we look at the data listed in the publication of the Integrated System for Environmental and Economic Accounts (SINERLING), which has just been looked at by BPS, stocks of energy resources, especially oil and natural gas, are nearing the end of their asset lives. Oil and natural gas resources, respectively, it is estimated that it will only be utilized in the next 20 and 35 years. Meanwhile, coal resources are estimated to still be used in the next 62 years. Nuclear can be utilized in the field of food of agriculture. This can be clearly seen from the data written by Batan. They have produced more than 21 varieties of superior food plants. When viewed in the industrial sector, Batan has two kinds of products, namely radioisotope iridium 192 and the radiation monitor portal (PMR). These two things can be used as a gamma camera for non-destructive testing and can be used to monitor radioactive circulation, as well as security for radioactive circulation, both illegal and non-illegal.
Okay, now I will explain about why is PLN an alternative. According to the Nuclear Energy Supervisory Agency, the use of nuclear science and technology is very diverse. Now it is starting to penetrate into the maritime world. The existence of nuclear technology is interpreted by some people as weapons, bombs, or other negative things. In fact, the existence of nuclear, its use and application in various sectors, namely health, agriculture, hospitals, and so on. Nuclear is not for war, but for people welfare. Even so, the public must not be too afraid, must not be anti-nuclear, and must not distance themselves from nuclear weapons. The need for electrical energy will continue to increase every year. Each increase causes an increase in consumption of fossil energy. Therefore, alternative energy sources such as nuclear power plants are needed. However, the use of nuclear power plants has a negative impact on radioactive waste. Radioactive waste, if not managed properly, will cause environmental damage and disrupt health. Nuclear power plants' radioactive waste, based on its shape, is divided into three, namely liquid, solid, and also gas. Okay, next I will explain about what is radioactive. How is the application of radioactivity in Indonesia? Okay, the first one, radioactive is an adjective that has the meaning of always emitting energy that we know as radiation energy. Radioactive substance can be interpreted as a substance that always emits energy. Radiation energy has a high energy that can cause the formation of ions, or often referred to as ionizing radiation. It is this energy which, if it is in the amount allowed, will benefit humans, but if it is excessive, that will be harmful. The need for electrical energy will continue to increase every year. Each increase causes an increase in consumption of fossil energy. Therefore, alternative energy sources such as nuclear power plants are needed. However, the use of nuclear power plants has a negative impact on radioactive waste. Radioactive waste, if not managed properly, will cause environmental damage and disturb health. Nuclear power plants' radioactive waste, based on its shape, is divided into three, namely liquid, solid, and also gas. How is the development of nuclear power plants in Indonesia from time to time? The first one I will explain about Sukarno era. The question is, what is Sukarno's attitude regarding nuclear development in Indonesia, and why is he behaving like that? Okay, the first president of the Republic of Indonesia, the proclaimer President Sukarno, had ambition for the Indonesian state to be able to produce nuclear weapons. Behind Sukarno's ambition, he had a clear goal why the Indonesian state should be able to produce nuclear weapons, namely to create an independent Indonesian state and create world peace. Sukarno directly states that he had the ambition that in the near future, the Indonesian state would be able and would be succeed in making its own bombs. Sukarno's statement changed in the orientation of nuclear development in Indonesia. The original aim for peace, or atoms for peace, shifted to the interest of military power. In the early 1960s, in the midst of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, Indonesia, which was entirely neutral, slowly began to take a position in the opposite direction. Sukarno was angry with Western countries, which continued to carry out neo-colonialism and neo-imperialism politics. Sukarno often sent delegations to China to discuss cooperation. In the end, Indonesia expressed interest in creating nuclear weapons. Indonesia chose to establish cooperative relations with the People's of Republic of China as the first Asian country to successfully test a nuclear weapon. However, all the Sukarno's efforts were in vain because China was reluctant to supply nuclear bombs, especially when it J-30S incident. Sukarno's power and Suharto was replaced. This caused relations between Indonesia and China to become tenuous. This finally ended President Sukarno's ambition to make nuclear weapons in Indonesia.
Okay, next I will explain about what is being done in Sukarno era. First, in 1954, activities for the development and application of nuclear technology in Indonesia by establishing a state committee for investigation of radioactivity. And then on December 5, 1958, Law number 31 of 1964, in Article 2, the President forms an Atomic Energy Council. And then in 1958, Basic Atomic Energy Provisions, where LTA was refined to become a baton. Among them are nuclear science and technology applications in the every fields. And then in the 1965, the operation of the first atomic reactor, Triga Mark II, was inaugurated, and the name change of the Atomic Energy Agency, LTA, to the National Atomic Energy Agency, BATAN. In 1965 too, used to conduct research and development in an effort to master technology in the field of radioisotope production. And then in 1967, the Gamma Research Center for Atomic Energy was also built. Next, it is still about Sukarno, and the question is, why did Sukarno's dream of developing nuclear power in Indonesia fail? Changing US policy caused Sukarno to become furious. He then diverted Indonesia's nuclear goals from being used as an atomic bomb. Secretly, Sukarno ordered the scientists of the Indonesian Atomic Energy Institute (LTA) to study in China because they had successfully tested their nuclear bomb in 1964. And then Sukarno stated that if Indonesia needed a nuclear bomb to protect its sovereignty and homeland from interference by other countries, the US, which did not want the trial to be carried out, immediately approached Indonesia again. This is intended so that Indonesia does not try to make a nuclear bomb. On October 1st, 1965, Sukarno's nuclear ambition failed solely because of the killing of six senior members of the military and a commander who, according to popular historical narrative, was masterminded by the Indonesian Communist Party (PKI). After all this, there has never been another attempt by Indonesia to develop atomic bomb or nuclear weapons.
Next, I will explain about Suharto era development. The question is, what is Suharto's attitude regarding nuclear development in Indonesia? In the Suharto era, both the fields of agriculture, animal husbandry, health, environment, industry, and others developed well until now. There are different attitudes shown by Sukarno and Suharto regarding the motivation for nuclear development in Indonesia. Sukarno had the ambition to make nuclear weapons. According to Sukarno at the time, the regional and international political situation was in the shadow of neocolonialism and imperialism country. Sukarno felt that if Indonesia had nuclear weapons, then Indonesia could defend the country sovereignly from these peoples. Suharto's view was different from Sukarno's. President Suharto continued to develop nuclear technology which was utilized for the benefit of public welfare in the fields of health, agriculture, animal husbandry, industry, and so on. President Suharto made use of nuclear technology by considering the far-reaching positive impact on the nation's future generation.
Next, it is still about Suharto, and the question is, what is Suharto's attitude regarding nuclear development in Indonesia? On December 4th, 1971, the Triga nuclear reactor with a capacity of 1000 kW was inaugurated by President Suharto. Then on March 1st, 1979, in Yogyakarta, President Suharto inaugurated the Kartini atomic reactor with a capacity of 100 kW, which was used as a research and educational facility designed and built by experts from Indonesia. Next, nuclear technology is also used for the benefit of people's welfare. President Suharto inaugurated include radiognostic nuclear medicine, radiotherapy in addition to pharmacies and several clinics, and then in the agricultural sector. And on August 20, 1987, President Suharto inaugurated the operation of the multipurpose nuclear reactor and the nuclear fuel element manufacturing installation. The head of state, G.A. Siwabesi, who was a professor who pioneered the establishment of the use nuclear technology in Indonesia since 1954, named the reactor and was founded with the assistance of the West German government. On December 5, 1988, President Suharto inaugurated the Batan Radioactive Waste Treatment Plant in Serpong, West Java. And then Indonesia has the potential to develop nuclear power as an energy source. Indonesia also certainly has human resources capable of managing nuclear technology. And security is monitored as safe and sufficiently guaranteed and will introduce nuclear technology to the public. How to introduce? By building a reactor with experimental power in order to convince the public of its safety in a real way. Suharto took a stance to make persuasive efforts towards the public regarding nuclear development.
Next, I will explain about development of PLTN from the Suharto era to the beginning of the Reformation. The question is, how was the development of nuclear power plants from the Suharto era to the beginning of the reform? Is it running smoothly? How did the president respond at the beginning of the reform to the construction of nuclear power plants? Okay, the first one I will explain about the background or reasons. Based on data from the National Nuclear Energy Agency, so far Indonesia has been maximizing the use of fossil energy sources as the backbone or the main source of electricity generation in Indonesia. But due to consideration regarding the dwindling availability of fossil energy, the idea emerged to build nuclear power plants in Indonesia. Every year, there is an increase in the use of electrical energy in various sectors. This will become more complicated if you only rely on fossil energy sources whose availability is dwindling. Next, I will explain about initial planning. In the early 1960s, the initial idea emerged in designing a serious nuclear power plant. This year, the National Atomic Energy Agency or BATAN and PUTL formed the preparatory commission for the development of a nuclear power plant. This commission was formed for a specific purpose, namely to conduct studies related to the possibilities that exist and will occur in the construction of nuclear power plants in Indonesia. Then only 5 places were selected which were considered feasible as potential location in carrying out the PLTN construction. Okay, next I will explain about feasibility study. Then the government conducted a feasibility study conducted by the National Atomic Energy Agency, which has now turned into the National Nuclear Energy Agency in collaboration with government from various countries, namely Italy, France, through the Soviet Atomic Company, and the International Atomic Agency, which was carried out until 1986 as an effort to respond to the proposal from the Commission regarding the construction of nuclear power plants. Next, I will explain about introduction feasibility study. From the beginning of 1991 to 1996, in Indonesia, a study was carried out on the feasibility of introducing nuclear power plants in Indonesia from various sites or aspects. In an effort to do this, the government took steps to cooperate with new GEC consultants ENC from Japan. This cooperation agreement was signed by Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia and carried out within a period of 4.5 years. The choice of location for the construction of nuclear power plants is not done haphazardly, but must go through a review from various aspects, including the result of an assessment of electricity, transportation, infrastructure, water supply, seismicity, geology, hydrology, population, environment, and so on. From the study conducted, the result obtained were recommendations from the best location to carry out by construction of a nuclear power plants, namely Ujung Lemah Abang, Ujung Grengnam, and Ujung Watu. Next, I will explain about final investigative study. According to the National Nuclear Energy Agency, the study of the location of the construction of nuclear power plants in Indonesia was finally concluded and completed in 1995. Overall, the study of nuclear power plants on the Muria was completed in May 1996. The government also made various efforts aimed at supporting the operation of nuclear power plants by developing research through Batan. Research conducted in the form of research in the fields of technology, radiation protection, nuclear fuel, and radioactive waste. Next, I will explain about development constraints and goods to response. In 1998, the Indonesian state experienced a multidimensional crisis. This crisis is a crisis that hit Indonesia in various fields of life, be it monetary, economic, political, legal, or a crisis of confidence at the end of the new order. This is why Indonesia is deemed necessary to conduct a study and re-evaluate the need for a supply of energy, especially electricity in Indonesia. This is what prompted the government to take steps to conduct a long-term national energy and electricity planning study. There are various kinds of response from residents who live in the area around the Muria Peninsula. Residents feel anxious and afraid of the effect of these nuclear power plants. Residents felt they could potentially become victims of nuclear radiation from the nuclear power plant. The majority of the population living around the PLT and construction site are members of Nahdlatul Ulama or NU. This of course sparked a reaction from the general chairman of NU at the time, Abdurrahman Wahid or Gusdur. He was worried the unwanted things would happen which would eventually cause NU members to become victims. In the end, in 1998, the nuclear power plants project, which was carried out on the Muria Peninsula, was stopped because at the time Indonesia was experiencing an economic and political crisis. Although this project was continued in the 2000, in the end in 2012, the government made a decision that the nuclear power plants project was completely cancelled. With the known reason that several times there were earthquakes around the mountain. How about construction of SBY era nuclear power plant? During the leadership of the sixth President of Republic of Indonesia, Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, there were signs that construction of nuclear power plants was being carried out. This was further strengthened by the issuance of presidential decree regarding the national energy policy. As a real effort to follow up on the law, in 2008, a signing was carried out which witnessed by President SBY. The signing was carried out by PT Medco Indonesia and a South Korean company, namely Korea Hydro Nuclear Power, which aims to build nuclear power plants in Indonesia. However, it is very unfortunate that this MOU is no longer continuing due to the pros and cons in SBY cabinet. This was further strengthened by the Fukushima Daiichi disaster on March 11, 2011. The explosion of a nuclear power plant reactor due to the tsunami was one of the causes for President SBY in saying that Indonesia was reducing the use of fossil energy towards renewable energy, but nuclear was not the main option to support this energy need.
Next, we will talk about Jokowi era. And then the question is, how is development of PLT and development since Jokowi's time? During President Jokowi's administration, development related to nuclear gave rise to regulation. The first regulation was ratified by President Jokowi on November 1st, 2022, namely Government Regulation Number 42 of 2022, concerning types and tariff for BNBP types that apply to the Nuclear Energy Supervisory Agency, which regulates how to obtain a permit to work as a certain official in installation with the utilization of radiation source ionizing and nuclear installation. In addition, it also regulates the matter of administering competency certification for security official of source or radioactive substance and personnel for conformity, testing of diagnosis and interventional radiology, X-ray, aircraft, as well as organizing training for functional radiation control officials. Then, on December 12, 2022, the second rule is PP 52 2022. Next, about Jokowi, I will explain about Jokowi supports the construction of nuclear power plants. The DPR and the government are discussing the bill on new and renewable energy. Now Indonesia will start to abandon the use of coal for electricity and generation because fossil energy is now a common enemy to the world. Therefore, the government will also immediately take steps to retire coal-based power plants, with delays in the construction of nuclear power plants for decades. There is a silver lining for Indonesia. Currently, there are three groups, namely the Batten High Temperature Gas Reactor type, which is developing homemade nuclear power plants designed in collaboration with other countries. And then I will explain about the government efforts to prepare human resources for nuclear experts in Indonesia. The development of a nuclear department that is right at Gajah Mada University. In addition, BRIN also plans to develop the Puspitek area into a national nuclear energy research and innovation center by revitalizing existing facilities and building modern facilities. Next, I will explain about what are the principles and process for utilizing energy from the reaction of atomic nuclear radioactivity to become a nuclear power plant. The principle of operation of a nuclear power plant is almost the same as a steam power plant, where the turbine rotates with high pressure steam and then this turbine rotation is converted into electrical energy. It's just that the difference lies in the heat source used to produce heat. Nuclear power plants use uranium as a heat source. The nuclear fission reaction of uranium produces a large amount of heat energy. PLTN heat is produced from the reaction of the fission of the atomic nucleus of the full uranium in a nuclear reactor. The heat generated is used to generate steam in the steam generator, and then just like in a conventional generator, the steam is used to drive turbine and generators to produce electricity. In generating electricity, PLTN does not release smoke or dust containing heavy metals or CO2, SO2, and O2 into environment. In addition, the principle of PLTN in producing electrical energy is like heating water in a boiler. Fire to heat the boiler is like a nuclear reaction. When the water gets hot, it will release steam. This steam pressure is used to turn the turbine and drive the generator in the PLTN system so that electricity is generated from the generator. So, what is utilized in PLTN is the heat generated in the nuclear reactor, not the radiation particle or isotopes. As mentioned above, the heat to generate steam in a nuclear power plant is obtained from the core splitting process. Based on the picture above, if a neutron particle succeeds in getting into the atomic nucleus of the uranium fuel, the uranium nucleus becomes more unstable and accordingly undergoes fission. The result of splitting is two atoms of other matter, 2 to 3 new neutrons and energy. The total mass of all the material formed after the splitting of the uranium atomic nucleus is smaller than before the fission. It is this difference in mass that turns into energy. The new neutrons that are formed after the splitting of the nucleus can mass the nucleus of other uranium atoms and so on to produce atoms of other matter 2 until 3 new neutrons and energy. Then a chain reaction is formed. 1 gram of uranium will be able to produce 1 million watts of power in one day. If a house uses 1000 kilowatt hours of energy in a day, then the energy produced by 1 gram of uranium can be used for about 24 days. Next, based on the picture above, the splitting of atoms in a chain reaction also releases a large amount of energy as heat. The generated heat is removed from the reactor by a circulating liquid, usually water. This heat can then be used to generate steam, which drives turbines for electricity production, so that the chain reaction does not develop uncontrollably, such as in the case of an atomic bomb. A control material is used, among others, made of cadmium, to make the chain reaction run in a stable and controlled manner. The new neutron resulting from fission have a very high speed. Therefore, in order to more easily enter the atomic nucleus, this neutron must be slowed down. The material that is often used as a slowing agent or moderator is plain water that has been demineralized. Heavy water or graphite can also be used as a moderator according to the type of fault. The heat generated in uranium fuel is very high. If cooling is not carried out, the fuel can be damaged or melted. There are several types of material that are usually used as coolants. For example, light water, heavy water, molten sodium metal, and gas. Selection of the type of coolant also depends on the type of fuel.
What is the impact and protection of the PLTN currently in use? Nuclear energy use must be used properly and correctly, because if not, this will have a dangerous impact in various ways. Nuclear can have a bad and dangerous impact on human health. Exposure to radiation from nuclear is very dangerous for human. However, Batan has previously guaranteed and carried out various forms of action in accordance with national and international regulation. Factors that concern Batan are the human factor and security culture, because these are important big factors in ensuring security at facilities, infrastructure, and transportation of nuclear materials. Batan guarantee that currently that have implemented a culture of nuclear security at all levels based on international reference that are guaranteed to be safe. Batan has carried out various studies, various forms of supervision, environmental monitoring, research on safety of waste treatment, and various other types of research that support the programs they are running, and of course have guaranteed the safety of the program.
Next, I will explain about how do Indonesian citizens view science and technology in selective attitude. Based on ideals, in supporting science and technology, we must of course uphold the rule of law that address to cultural values and norms that apply in society, instill ethical values and religious values in everyday life. In addition to upholding human rights, or we call HAM, and avoiding open deviations. support and follow the development of science and technology, reject science and technology which has a bad influence on human rights and violates the principle of the state, as well as getting used to behaving well and helping others. Apart from that, as students we are required to study hard so as not to be left behind by science and technology development. Be critical of change in science and technology that are happening, and for parents to be more vigilant about tightening supervision over the use of technology, especially for minors. Next, I will explain about science and technology correlation with Pancasila. And then the first one is reporting from the Pancasila Ideology Development Agency as one of the development of science and technology is nuclear. Many people do not agree with nuclear development because they are still afraid of a nuclear power plants in their minds. In the development of science and technology, we can actually correlate it based on the values of Pancasila, namely the first principle of belief in one God. For example, in Indonesia, religions are so diverse that every society as well as the government must adhere to their respective beliefs. There is no religion that teach something that is not good. So with this nuclear development, they must have thought carefully so that it would not endanger people's life. The second is a fair-minded and civilized humanity united of Indonesia. Living things are created noble, so know the purpose of nuclear was built. The third is the unity of Indonesia. It means we must always create a sense of unity and oneness so that we don't choose and follow the wrong one by creating fear of nuclear in society. And then fourth, populace, which is led by wisdom and representative deliberation that wants all of us citizens to be able to support and make good use of nuclear development in Indonesia. For example, by creating a sense of security in society so that they can accept nuclear. Next, fifth is social justice for all Indonesian people, in which citizens are required to create justice in society so they can think of one another. Nuclear is not a dangerous thing, but more than there is something that can be bring prosperity to society with the existence of a nuclear power plants in our minds, which can facilitate various access.
Conditions are not ideal, namely people who reject radioactivity because they think radioactivity is dangerous. At this time, one of the reasons why construction of nuclear power plants in Indonesia is being hampered is due to resistance from the community. Nuclear development carried out in Indonesia has increasingly lagged behind other countries that have previously planned nuclear power plant construction projects. The use of nuclear energy is still getting a lot of rejection from the public. This is why this good potential cannot be implemented and developed in Indonesia. Indonesia should make use of nuclear energy because nuclear is the energy of the future. The problem of nuclear development in Indonesia lies only in the acceptance of the people who are still afraid and anxious about the existence of nuclear power plant. It is considered that the government needs to be more vigilant in presenting the risk or benefit of using nuclear technology so that people can trust and believe that the steps taken by the government are positive. Now I will explain about the last part, which is conclusion. Radioactive is an element that can emit radiation because it is unstable. Of course, high radiation exposure can be very dangerous. This can cause acute health effects such as skin burns and acute radiation syndrome. The government efforts are through Batan to collaborate with SPERA to collect data on radioactive sources and the effect and risk of radioactive use. Many people often feel afraid and do not agree with the use of radioactivity. This can be seen from the many objections made by community regarding the construction of nuclear power plants in several regions in Indonesia. Many people are afraid of the effect of radioactive radiation and feel traumatized and afraid that the events that occurred in Chernobyl and Fukushima could also occur in these areas. This is reasonable because the community itself does not receive clear information and lack of socialization from the government regarding radioactivity. This should be the best source of energy and very useful for the future, but was hindered by the rejection. As dedicated and educated citizens of the Republic of Indonesia, let us view it wisely regarding the use of radioactivity in Indonesia. Radioactivity has a long-lasting positive impact for the interest of the nation and state in the future. As good citizens, we should support the programs that the government want to run. Plus, these programs aim positively for the welfare of the community itself in the future. To the government that has fought for something positive for our country, Indonesia, let us support every program run by the government, especially since the use of radioactivity is very important as a future energy source which is very useful for our nation in the future. As citizens of Indonesia, let us work together with the government to build the nation and state in various fields. Let's work together our common goals and for everyone goodness.
That's all from us. This is our reference. And thank you for listening. God bless you.